we started this project, we started with the basic premise of a question, and that is, where does your water come from? Is the one thing that binds all of us together, regardless of who we are, what culture we come from, what our backgrounds are, where we live. All of us live in a watershed anywhere in the world, and all of us can answer that question. If we can leverage the power of photography, and especially time-lapse photography, it can be really powerful.
As a scientist, we can't be everywhere. We can't go back in time. We can't stand at a creek for days on end and watch it. We miss so much. Imagery is a way to observe a place in timescales that is just not possible in other ways.
There's no words. It cuts through all the politics and everything else and just bears witness to change over time.
So today we're at Lake Agnes, which is a really high alpine lake in northern Colorado, and it's the headwaters of the Platte River. The snowpack up there, that eventually makes its way all the way down through the plains of Colorado into eastern Nebraska.
The Platte River Basin is this 90,000 square mile watershed that sits right in the heart of the North American continent, right in the middle of the Great Plains, and eventually dumps into the Missouri River. 13 years ago, my buddy Mike Farrell and I co-founded the Platte Basin time-lapse project. And its key goal is to set an entire watershed in motion using a string of time-lapse cameras that we basically have daisy-chained from mountains to plains.
We have more than 70 time-lapse cameras spanned across Nebraska, Colorado, and Wyoming. It's all watching things from snow melt to waterfalls in the Nebraska sandhills, streams and lakes, and in the springtime you can see roosts of sandhill cranes, which is just a really unique phenomenon. It's one of the greatest migrations still left in the world, and the camera's been capturing that for more than 10 years.
Our time-lapse cameras, they basically consist of like a DSLR camera that you typically use for still photography, but that camera is put in a weatherproof housing, and that they're all custom-made systems, so there's a small computer that can control how often it takes photos. And we can just leave these cameras out on the landscape. They're powered by solar panels, so really all we have to do is go out a few times a year and swap out memory cards in these cameras. We even have a few cameras that are connected to cell service that'll send those photos straight to our server, so it's a pretty slick setup for the most part.
We have over 5 million images now, and there's so much data, and those pictures can be leveraged for art, can be leveraged for science. It's sort of this big community of people studying the system around this huge library of pictures, and I can't wait to see over time what everybody else can extract out of them.
I was new to the Great Plains and hadn't worked in prairie rivers, and it was also a way for me to become connected and begin to learn about these systems. We were looking at inundation dynamics using Platte Basin imagery, and so we were able to characterize what we call the hydro regime, or the number of days a year that the meadow's wet, and look at the relationship with these other variables. The edge of that water in the land is really important for a lot of ecosystem processes and organisms that use wet places, dry places, or their interactions. I'm just really interested in increasing awareness of what's here and hopefully help conserve some of these resources that we still have.
I just kind of stumbled across Platte Basin time-lapse because they were part of the university. The main focus right now has been developing software that makes it a lot easier for scientists to use kind of time-lapse imagery that's being collected. We're trying to make that process much more streamlined, where you can get the images in hand very quickly, you can explore them, you can sort them by kind of the quality, and then you can process them to pull different kinds of features out from the images, like even the color of the water that changes over time. And that color of the water might be related to the quality of the water as well. This is basically taking things that you see very intuitively in the image and turning it into a number. And so we can do that with a lot of different things. We're showing color here, that's pretty intuitive. We also have greenness index. And so then we can just select a folder, click process, and then it'll kick out a CSV file, a huge spreadsheet that has all of these things calculated for all the images in that folder.
As you can imagine, it takes so much time to go through all these photos manually. So having software like Troy's that can very quickly select images from a certain time frame, get rid of images that might be too dark to be useful for what researchers are needing, I think it really has a lot of potential to open up a lot of doors for more researchers using these images.
You only get out to your site a few times a year in many cases. By watching those time lapses, they've really changed my perspective on the dynamics of those sites over the whole year.
Platte River Basin is a fully appropriated river basin, meaning that every drop of water is accounted for by some stakeholder out there. The Great Plains are America's breadbasket, increasingly our energy pump, and it once was one of the greatest grassland ecosystems on Earth. A lot of that was wiped out, but there's still this wildness that remains.
Almost all of our rivers are really altered from their natural state throughout the world and here in North America. And in many cases, we can never go back. And so it's just being able to be part of documenting what this whole river system is like now so that it's available for other people to be able to look at those images, ask their own questions, become curious, and then have tools to be able to do analysis with those images.
I always think about what this archive of imagery will do in 100 years from now. Like, how different is the landscape going to look in 100 years? There's impact and significance of those images now, but where the real impact is going to come is, 50 to 100 years from now.
We never thought in a million years that it would have gone this long. It just keeps evolving. And it keeps evolving because our community keeps growing. And the more people we involve, the more imagination that comes to the table. There's a lot of power of building community around a watershed. And there's restoration efforts that are happening. And I think we have a change culture here that are recognizing the value of what we lost and trying to help bring some of it back. We'll have written a chapter in the history of the Platte River Basin and have this beautiful bank of visual knowledge that probably has not been replicated anywhere else in the world.